All right. Hey, please come to order for the February 12, 2019 Finance Committee meeting. Please stand for the opening prayer to be presented by Councilman John Cagnalotti and remain standing for the pledge.
Thank you. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here tonight and to decide on the business of the citizens of Ascension Parish. Guide us to make the decisions that will be correct in spending the taxpayers' dollars wisely and on the projects necessary to serve the public. We ask you to guard those who are in public safety, first responders, and also the military who fight for our freedom that we every day take for granted. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Looks like, who we got? Councilman Benny Johnson, and he called and he's en route. Is that right? That's the only one missing. Chair additions. Travis, Councilman Turner. He may be here too. Could be. I don't have any additions, but item number 9, please remove that from your agenda. And just to take a minute, I want to thank Council Chair Ms. Casso for appointing me or having the confidence in me to chair this committee, and I look forward to working with everybody over the next year. Public comment. So if you have a public comment, there are some cards at the podium. Pick one up, fill it out, turn it into the secretary, and she'll get it up here, and we will let you give you 3 minutes on each agenda item. General business, item number 5, review and approval of proposed 2019 property and casualty insurance renewal rates. Mr. Harry Robert and Taylor Robert of Robert Insurance.
Thank you, Council Lady, Councilman. It's always a pleasure being here and working with the parish. Our insurance renewal for property and casualty is pretty basic. Major changes that the carrier that we had for the last several years decided that they weren't going to write municipalities in Louisiana any longer, so we had to go out, and get other interests. Fortunately, because of our excellent record, we had several companies, I think 8 or 9 of them really gave us proposals because of our excellent loss experience. I guess probably that's shown in page 3 of your folder, all the companies that were interested and gave us quotes. Major cost differences that caused a slight increase in premium over last year, which is about, I think, $26,000, is in workman's compensation. Of course, the way we write workman's compensation is written on a 2-year policy basis, so it's audited every 2 years, so they anticipate some of the payroll for the upcoming year and a half. So it might look like it's a little bit inflated, but you only charge for the actual audit on it, so it's just the way the workman's comp industry works. Okay, so your actual payroll probably is not $4 million as shown. That's probably some projection about how it's going to be at the end of maybe the first or the second year. That's just an audited type policy, and that's the way they promulgate it. If you go over to page 5, I have a breakdown, of each category, and then you can see the differences in the types of coverage: automobile, general liability, public officials, employee benefits, employee-related practices, crime, boiler machinery, your property, your mobile equipment, which gives you a sum total of $775,000. And then the workman's comp, the audit amount is $97,000, which is going to be audited on a 2-year basis. The terrorism is the same as it was before, 21. So your total insurance premium is $894, which has a net increase of roughly around $26,000, which again, I think probably is something we can be proud of because the market indicators probably above that. The agent fees and the TPA fees, which are third-party administrator, are the same, and they've been the same for the last 15, 20 years. So it's pretty basic. It's kind of mundane. It's just the same renewal as we had, last several years. Any type of questions, anything, I'll be happy to answer them. The company which I'm recommending to go is Ace Insurance Company, and of course they're AAA rated, which is one of the highest ratings you can get financially, and their acceptance and reputation is excellent. So we were happy to have such a qualified, company to give us a proposal on. You happy to answer any questions?
Questions, comments? Councilman Cagnolati.
Yeah, Harry, we talked a little bit about this before, but on page 4, the general liability, employee benefits, employee practices, public officials, et cetera. What is that? Explain those two budget margins, why there's such a $71,000 is,
Well, because
that's the values?
a lot of the municipalities, majority of them, the more in the budget that a company has, the more exposure they can have. The more things they buy, the more employees they have, the more expenditures they have, okay? So it's kind of budget sensitive. They take your annual budget and they apply a factor to that, and they help go ahead and reach the rate that they're going to charge for the automobile and for all these related coverages. Okay, that's why the more your budget is, okay, the more you're going to spend, the more exposure the company has. So it kind of reflects on what their charges are going to be, or their rates are going to be whenever they promulgate the figures for you.
Okay.
Pretty accurate way to do it. If you take the smaller municipalities, they don't have near the things that we have to do, and so naturally their premiums are somewhat smaller, because they don't have the budget.
And on the other side, you said Berkeley's no longer writing municipalities or parishes?
They've never
They got out of Louisiana, or?
Yeah, they're out of Louisiana for municipalities. They may do some commercial work, but they're going to stay out of the municipalities. And that's common in our industries. All of a sudden, they come in and they get fat, and they decide, that they've been lucky and they're going to get out while the getting's good. So they might go to another area where they can raise the premiums, because they had no reason to raise premiums here, because they had excellent rates, So I guess probably it's just the world that the insurance companies live in. Sometimes it's, I think they're making the wrong decisions, but it's not. It's not my place to really make that decision for them, So,
Councilman Lawler.
First of all, I have a couple questions. I don't know if you'll be able to answer them.
Okay.
Maybe more for the administration. Do we have 79 new units, automobile?
No, I'll be able to
Oh,
answer that too. Yeah, again, that's an audited type, figure in the policy, and you have to remember, a couple years back when we had the flood, we had a lot of automobiles that we purged out of the system, and then some of them also we kind of had on a lease basis, and so when we added those back and then kind of added to it, well, then that showed that increase, which kind of, if you compare it to maybe 3 years ago, it wouldn't be as significant, but if you compare it to what happened with the flood, then it makes that significant, you see, so.
What is the renewal date for this?
3/1.
3/1.
3/1.
I had, I'd sent a lot of emails earlier to the administration trying to get some answers on things that I haven't gotten yet. Part of my concern is, and look, you are doing a great job, and this is nothing with Robert Insurance Agency,
Right.
but from what I see, has this gone out for a bid ever for the agency, the brokerage, or the TPA?
Well, we go out for bids, review quotes every year. And
No,
as you can
to the insurance, but I'm talking about
Yeah.
the services you
TPA.
provide and the TPA provides.
No, actually, the TPA has been, the same TPA for about, 25, 26 years, And of course, I think that probably the last time you and I spoke about it, just to be kind of involved in it, I kind of, mentioned it to several people who are involved with our present TPA, And everybody seems like they were satisfied, with the work, and it never went any further, I told you, so I mean, I'll work with whomever y'all decide that y'all want to be the TPA. But I think probably the consensus at this point is that everybody seems to be satisfied with the TPA that we have now.
Well, I mean, we're saying that, but we don't know what else is out there. And this really goes back to the administration. I've asked for loss runs for the previous 5 years. I've asked for payment registers, claim software that they're using, open claim loss runs, all things that we'd get more information on the TPA and the insurance side of things. Because what I see, we've been paying the same rate forever. They've got to be making money on the back end. And part of what concerns me is that how much is this contract that we're signing with them? Because I've seen the contract, it's not a $25,000 contract. There's a lot of other things in there that they can charge for, and this contract could be worth 50,000, 60, 100, 200,000. And, I mean, there's some ethical issues there.
Well, and I guess I agree with you, but I think probably just from memory, I would think that probably total sum on an annual basis is probably closer to 30, 35, something of that nature. And then some of the figures that you referenced, I mean, for the last 20 years, we've been having an actuarial report, which is an outside firm that comes in and reviews all our exposures and then gives us a report on it. And we had, in fact, I just sent finance one today on the most recent one, which was encompassing all of the 18th year, you know, on everything that you just mentioned. And we've been having that, like I was saying, for 20-something years, which gives an outside source. And from that, we develop our loss fund amount, okay, from all the projections of anticipated losses and whatever we have that. So it's pretty thorough, and I'm sure they would want to could share that with you, and if not, well, I'll be happy to share it with you.
I mean, I've asked for a lot of this information. I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah, and well, it's all there. And of course, as far as the claims, on a quarterly basis, our risk manager, Tommy Marchand, Jeff Diaz, our attorney, you know, Gary Lee, the TPA, we review all outstanding claims and outstanding suits on a quarterly basis. And of course, Jeff takes any type of action he needs to with O'Neill or whomever is in that particular, you know, field, and we address whatever we have to do on that, you know. So it's, you know, it's a pretty thorough program. However, some of the aspects that you just mentioned, I guess that's just at your pleasure if you want to, you know, open that up. I mean, whatever.
I mean, my thought is, and we put out bids for asphalt, for limestone, for tons of inanimate objects. And we're sitting here and we're talking about insuring the citizens' money. We're talking about adjusting the citizens. Apparently, we're signing a contract that is worth well over $25,000, or potentially worth it, and we're not even looking at that. And we've been signing it year after year after year. I mean, this is the kind of thing that has to go up for bid. I mean, I don't have a problem with competition. I don't think you do either.
Nope.
And quite honestly, you know, from the numbers I'm looking at, I think you'd get it.
Right.
But I don't feel comfortable that we've been doing this for apparently 20, 25 years, whatever it may be, at the same rates. You know, I really think this is something, and I also know, I have a little background in this, that generally, you know, we can get an agent broker, we put out for like a 3-year contract, you put out a 3-year bid on that, and then you do just what you've been doing is you go, you gather those insurance companies in and you give us the best bids, but you also separate out the TPA in that because sometimes, and I think we've had this in the past, where our TPA is not licensed to work with maybe the insurance company we have. We've got to make that.
Right.
We've had that in the past, haven't we?
Sure. Yeah.
And what have we done in those situations?
Well, what he'll do is he'll just go ahead and make the necessary steps to make sure that he is accredited, you know, TPA for that particular insurance carrier. And of course, he's not a TPA for all insurance carriers. So every time we change carrier, we have to make sure that he's licensed and recommended by that carrier, which, you know, requires significant background and experience for them to probably qualify him.
Or have we also hired another TPA to work with them and paid them both?
No, never have.
I mean, that's some of the information that I've asked for, and I'm still waiting on it. I don't feel comfortable moving on this tonight, and quite honestly, for the past 20 years, I don't understand how we can have not had this kind of business go out for bid. When we bid every single thing, quite honestly, I mean, I think there's some major issues here. If we've got contracts that say that they're below 25,000, but when you do the math and you look at the contract, which I've looked at, there's a lot of factors in there that they can charge for X, Y, and Z. So it's clearly a contract that's well over. And what we're talking about is we don't do an engineering contract and say it's going to be 25,000, but you can then go out there and charge us for X, Y, and Z over that contract, and we're just going to sign that. We require that it's a not to exceed amount. And what we've got here is we've been signing contracts under 25,000, but in reality, it's well over that.
Well, his is it's not really audited, but the additional cost, you know, is a derivative of the activity that's included, workman's comp, general liability, whatever. So the more claims that he's involved in processes with, then he might exceed that 25 and go over. And like I was saying, I think that probably.
So it's
you
a
know,
contract that exceeds 25,000, though, is the reality of it. Just like an
Exactly.
engineering contract, that they may do more work, pushing it over that 25,000, so we cannot keep that out of the bids.
Well,
And that's what we've been doing. I mean, that's where I have to ask the administration, can we put this out for bid? Are we against competition on this?
This is a professional contract, but let me just tell you this, we were trying to compile, you asked for a lot of stuff, and we got a pretty busy office going on. I'm no lawyer, but let me tell you something, this guy has done a great job. For the whole time I've been with the parish, I worked cases with him, fraud cases. He's been good. We never had any problem, and I saw what I thought he made, so I didn't think it was that much money for all the work he did. We're gonna get you everything that we can get you by next week, Aaron. And I mean that's your decision. But Tommy Marchand, who works for him, and Harry Robert, who works for him, this guy does a great job. But he's Johnny on the spot. That's all I can tell you.
Well, I understand that, but what we're talking about, we don't know if there's anything better out there because we've never put it out to bid. How much have we recovered in second injury fund recoveries?
I mean, every time there's an opportunity for us to do it, I mean, he does it, and so far, I can't tell you the exact amount, but I know we've been successful in just about every attempt he's made on second injury recoveries.
Okay, but my concern is that we've talked to past HR people and said that we weren't getting second injury fund forms. And you can't get second injury fund if we're not getting the forms. And if we're not doing that, I would expect my TPA
Sure.
to be pressing to get that. And he's been our TPA for 20 years.
Right.
And apparently, we haven't been getting the forms. And for people to understand, the second injury fund, it does two things. It encourages employees that have been injured to come back to the workforce. Because if you have somebody with a back injury that cannot work, and they say they can't work, you want to get them back working.
Absolutely.
An employer would be
Absolutely.
nervous to do it because they could file a comp claim saying they've injured their back, and then we'd have to pay for it.
Yeah,
But what the second injury fund does, it says if you bring them back in, and you get them working, and they injure their back again, that employer gets some of their money back. So it also protects the taxpayers of this parish. And for what I understand, we haven't been getting that form for years.
Well, I mean, we have very few extended workman's comp forms that's eligible for second injury fund participation. But those that we have that's extended for a long term, and that's one of the reasons why we have a favorable loss ratio.
But we're supposed to get a second injury fund form on every employee that comes into the parish. Everybody that works for DPW should fill one out. Everybody that works for
As a
recreation
pre-hired
or
worker,
anything.
Yep.
And we haven't been doing that.
Absolutely. Well, you're right, yep.
But that's a, TPA should see that, and that's part of what they do is, they provide, I saw it in the contract, they look at the loss issues. I mean, right now, I think hopefully it's fixed, I haven't checked, but we put up play equipment without a safety surface under it. That's the kind of thing that, it sets us up for liability, first of all,
Right.
but that's part of what the contract the TPA calls for, is that they help look for loss potential, look for risk, and advise against that. And apparently, we don't have a procedure for doing that sort of thing. That's why I'm not very comfortable.
Sure.
And maybe we are getting a great deal.
Sure.
And I think the deal we're getting from you is quite honestly, I think it's very good. And like I said, I think if it goes out for bid, Robert Insurance is going to get it again.
Right, right.
But I am concerned with the TPA side of things. I don't feel comfortable doing this right now. And I think next year, we need to have a broker. The way it can be done is we can hire a separate third party to go out and put together bid specifications for insurance, and then get brokers and really do this the right way, like most parishes do. Not just parishes, most municipalities, large municipalities don't do it this way. Most parishes don't do it this way. So I don't feel comfortable moving forward with this, and I'd ask the administration that we, at the minimum, send the TPA portion out for a public bid and get some information on that. And I don't know if we have the time to do that with the insurance. I don't think we do, being that it's March 1st, so we should go forward with the insurance portion of it.
So can you do that separately, Harry? Can you segregate the TPA portion
Sure.
out of this?
Sure, we can. I don't think that probably, you want to do it beyond the inception date of the policy.
Beyond March the 1st, is
Right,
that what you're
right,
saying?
Exactly, yeah. But, I mean, I think that probably, his contract doesn't coincide with the parish's policy. So I don't think probably it would make that much difference, whatever y'all choose to do, I'm happy.
So you think his contract is on a schedule than the
I would
March
think so.
1st?
Yeah, I would think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We'd have to look at theirs. Let's see if you can, if you want to make a motion, and let's see if we have any more questions.
I'll let us
Kenny?
have questions
I
first.
think we
President
need to,
Matthias.
we need to ask the legal department to check that contract. I think it was already approved.
No.
I'm just saying, we need to check that,
Okay.
okay?
So did we approve
You
the
don't
contract?
know if it's approved, O'Neill, or is it
I
not
don't
been
know.
approved?
I don't-
Okay,
I don't-
okay.
Well, it's my understanding that it hasn't been signed
Miss
yet. 'Cause
Sandra-
I asked for a copy of it, and they said it hadn't been returned signed yet. The TPA? But it hasn't been returned and signed yet. Well, then, I make a motion that we rescind that and put this out for bid.
Okay, so we have a motion to rescind the TPA, or remove that from the insurance contract and put it out for bids. Is that correct? Nobody's standing up
I think you've
here.
awarded a contract in the, you've got to, I don't think you can act on that tonight.
Yeah.
I think you've got to put that on the agenda to act on the TPA. This is not what's on
Well,
here
it's on.
tonight.
Well, it's
Because you got to
part
give
of
the
this. It's
person
a part of
notice if
this.
you're going to rescind his contract that you've already approved.
But
Well,
it
it-
hasn't been signed.
Okay, so we have a motion, but we don't have a second. So that motion dies.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lambert,
I'd like to go ahead and make this recommendation for the number one, ACE group, for the property and casualty insurance.
okay, so we have a motion to accept the recommendation of ACE Group for
I'll second that.
Mr. Lawler seconds that. And discussion, I do have, I had a question myself. So I see, Harry, you had nine companies that quoted on this. Is that correct?
Right.
So I didn't see like a bid tab, or, where was the second place person, or how far apart were these things, or?
Some of them were significantly, different than other ones. And then because ACE actually was the most economical, the cheapest one, and had the adequate, rating and everything, so then we went with ACE.
So do you remember how far away was the second place?
The second one was probably, I think it was $30-something thousand. And
So
it
if
wasn't
you-
until the last, and the
It
reason
was
why.
$30,000 less, is that what you, I mean, more-
Right,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's a significant difference in it, And at first, we didn't think we were gonna get ACE to reach all the compliance and everything, but it just so happens that, we pushed and everything, and it wasn't until, I think, last week that they came in, with the best bid
Okay,
that we had.
so have you got a bid tab on that?
Yeah,
So,
we're Brown and sure.
okay, so I'd like to get a copy of the bid tab on that, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to accept ACE Group as our insurer. Any further discussion, questions, any opposition? Hearing none, motion's approved.
Clarification, along that first line, now, we also had, TPA and agent fees. Now, is that gonna be renewed, everything like it is now? Is that what you
That was
everything on
not
the line one? Okay.
removed, so
I
it's
just wanted to make sure.
as you
Okay.
submitted it. I think,
And if I can-
myself, I would encourage that Councilman Lawler and the administration get together and, maybe for the next bid period, we can look at
I
that.
just want to go ahead and reiterate that, Mr. Lawler, if you want me to help you in any way, shape, or form, I'd be happy to do.
Yeah,
You know
I
what,
really
yeah.
think we need to bid that kind of thing out in the future.
Great, thank you,
Do-
gentlemen. Later.
Thank you. President Matthias,
Does all the council want a copy of this stuff?
the bid
Ms.
tab.
Saxon?
They
I'm-
probably
You can
don't.
send it to all
I'm
the
the
council
only
if y'all
one
want
that-
it.
Thank you.
And nobody said anything about it.
But it's just, we got 12 days we're looking at, and I appreciate everything you're doing, but I don't think we can meet in 12 days.
I would just suggest that if you do send something out, send it out to the whole council,
Okay.
all right? I think everybody should be somewhat, at least have it in front of them.
No, that's fine with me.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Oh, I know you don't want it by yourself.
All right.
I'm done.
I was by myself last night. Now, item number 6, final update on August 2016 flood recovery. Rick Weber and Eric DeRoche. Sorry, Eric.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I want to give you an update on the temporary and permanent categories of work from FEMA. The temporary categories of work should be on your iPad, and then you'll have a hard copy in front of you for the permanent categories of work. Again, I want to start with the temporary, but what I want to focus on is your net position based on the flood. What is your reimbursements over your actual expenditures that you expended for the flood? So if we can start with the temporary categories first, if you look at page 1, on the top of it, it says Category A, debris removal on your iPad. If you look at projects 806 through 971, we submitted $1.8 million for debris removal and monitoring services. You had a $63,000 reduction. $8 million was approved, a $668,000 match, and $7.4 million was reimbursed for that. And just a real caveat, what the reductions were for, if you see Project 807, the $49,000 was actually moved to Project 808. And the reason it was moved was because you get an 8% match on the first 90 days, but a 10% match on the subsequent 90 days, post 90 days. So that was moved to Project 808. And the $5,000 was reduced because of equipment rate change for horsepower and capacity. So $8.1 million was submitted, $7.4 million was reimbursed. And if you go to page 2, it's Category B, Emergency Protective Measures. Project number 953. It deals with force account equipment, material, labor, and contracts. $3.8 million was submitted to FEMA with an $89,000 reduction. State approved was $3.7 million with a $330,000 match, and $3.4 million was reimbursed. If you combine the temporary categories and the permanent categories, 11.9 was submitted, 11.8 was approved. You got about $1 million match, and $10.8 million was reimbursed. And if you look at the graph right below that, the orange line represents what was submitted. The green line, the gray line represents what was reimbursed, and the blue line is your actual cash disbursements for the flood. And if you look at the next page, I'll show you how we calculated that blue line. That first chart that you see is force account equipment for the pumping station. This isn't cash disbursements. This is what FEMA paid you to operate your equipment during the flood. So for the pumping operations, Marvin Bro, Henderson Bayou, Conway, you got a little over $1 million to operate those pumps. The sandbag machines, you got $30,000 for, $220,000 for debris removal equipment, force account equipment, and $235,000 for Category B equipment. So that's $1.5 million that you got to operate equipment. If you take that $1.5 million and subtract it from the amount reimbursed, it comes out to $10.4 million, which represents the blue line on the graph. If you take the $10.4 million, subtract it from what was reimbursed, you come out with $384,000. So that's $384,000 of reimbursements above what your expenditures were. Again, you got to take into consideration your fuel burn on all equipment, so that isn't taken into consideration. Good thing here is we're about to turn this over to Martha, and she's going to go in for a CDBG match, and hopefully we can get that match reimbursed, so that'll put you about $1.3 million if she's successful doing that. But right now, you stand at about $384,000 above your expenditures for temporary work.
Good job.
Great job. Okay, questions, comments for Rick Weber?
Okay.
Mr. Kluot.
Rick, you guys, I want to thank your department. I know and all the departments that feed in that are captured under this, the agencies throughout the parish, there's a tremendous amount of paperwork that goes into this that has to be up front. And for these numbers to be like they are, y'all did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Rick, and the roads, I'm looking at the pretty good amount that was in my district.
Mm-hmm.
So did we get even half back, or?
Now, let me explain. We did falling weight deflectometry. The actual claim was a little over $5 million. We did falling weight deflectometry to determine how bad we had the roads damaged by the flood. We submitted it to FEMA, and it came several appeals that we submitted to FEMA, and their response was, if we didn't have the falling weight deflectometry in a year previous to prove pre-existing damages, they denied it. Same thing with the bridges. As an example, the one on Joseph Area Road, we knew we had some issues with the bridge approaches. We used ground penetrating radar to check the bridge approaches, and we knew we had voids behind the bulkheads.
Right.
We had a DPW crew standing by, and as soon as we identified the void, we cut the road open. Me and Eric jumped into the cut, we measured the void, we took pictures, we submitted it to FEMA. But because the bridge inspections that were done a year before identified small voids behind the bulkheads, that was denied also. So Road and Bridge, statewide for the flood, nobody got any cash for roads or bridges. And we got one parish that I'm aware of that's going through arbitration. I wish them luck, but I don't see any way around this. But what I really would like your help with, if we can get with our federal delegation, there needs to be a group of subject matter experts that's an impartial board that reviews this, engineers. We don't send it back to the person that denied it in the first place, because that's what's happening with these project worksheets.
Right.
We knew that it was going to be
early
on, we knew it was going to be an arbitrary decision made by a person, not necessarily based on policy or fact, and not to be on them that they have regulations, but it was arbitrary on what we could get.
Non-destructive
wait for a
testing
good
is-
decision or a bad
Yeah.
one.
It's best business practices, engineering-wise, throughout the country, but FEMA wouldn't recognize non-destructive testing. Anything after Hurricane Sandy, non-destructive testing
Right.
is not even a factor.
And we didn't have the budget nor the instinct to have the type of inspections to the nth degree that to match what we did afterwards. We went way out and hand over fist and just digging in for good inspections, post flood. And nobody, I've talked to other parishes, they just like you said, nobody had that type of inspection with the radar and everything, before that they could match prior and post.
Silver lining is that we got the data that we was able to turn over to Road and
Right.
Bridge and Engineering, so we was able to give it to them. And it's coming to fruition now. We're starting to see these roads degradate where they were flooded, so the testing was accurate. It was accurate.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions. I want to just echo what everybody else has said, Rick. I want to thank you and your staff. You did a tremendous job in this. For us to have been reimbursed for $10.4 million is, as Randy said, a tremendous amount of paperwork, we know. Also bodes well for our administration in the fact that we had that money available and to use in the flood. We didn't have to borrow money to go out and try to do these repairs on our roads and pick up the trash. But now we built our reserve back up and we're ready to go again. Thank you.
And just one more thing I could add, if I could.
Sure.
This one sheet that you have in front of you, that's the permanent work. If you add them both together, permanent and temporary, you got $2.3 million reimbursement from permanent, $10.8 million reimbursement from temporary. That's $13.1 million. Your net position is about $665,000 above your expenses, with $1.5 million in standby to rebuild Centermore Park. About $540,000 to rebuild Station 61. But again, you're going to have to bear the expense of rebuilding the Cancer Center and PJ's Landing. Everything else we have money in standby for. Because we didn't have the flood insurance, we took a really large penalty for the Cancer Center and for PJ's Landing.
Right.
So we had to make some decisions on what projects we could do. We transferred funds out from the Cancer Center to rebuild mosquito control. We transferred some funds out from PJ's Landing to rebuild Centermore Park.
Right.
So that was some decisions that we had to make. But right now, it looks like if you take a snapshot from the day, your expenses are below the revenue that you got coming in.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, item number 7, approval of certificate of substantial completion, Gitro General Contracts, substation number 62, driveway replacement. And see, we have Chief James LeBlanc here. I think this is in your packet, the substantial completion.
We would just ask that you go ahead and approve the final, the job is complete, they did a great job.
Motion.
A motion by Councilman Kluart, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Any discussion? Any opposition? Thank you, Chief. Item number 8, renewal of fiscal agency agreement between Ascension Parish Government and Hancock Whitney for year 2019. The agreement shall cover all funds and bank accounts administered by the Parish of Ascension. And Gwen LeBlanc. Do you have any?
we are very pleased with the services provided by Hancock Whitney, and therefore we request that the council approve the renewal as provided in the fiscal agent agreement itself.
Motion.
Okay, motion by Councilwoman Casso, a second by Councilman Kluart. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion's adopted. Skipping item number 9 to item number 10, renewal of the contract with Dr. Robert Barnes with Ascension Counseling Center to provide psychiatric and mental health services to mental health and to substance abuse patients who are Ascension Parish residents. Total compensation shall not exceed $213,200. Suzanne Hamilton, I didn't see Suzanne here tonight. Does anybody have any questions on that? Mr. Ken Dawson.
Yeah, this is just a kind of a normal renewal, Mr. Chairman.
Motion.
To do it.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Joseph, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Discussion? Opposition? Motion's adopted. Item number 11, amendment number 2 to professional services contract with BFI Waste Services LLC, doing business as Republic Services of Baton Rouge for dumpster rentals at various locations around the parish to extend the current contract to April 30th, 2019 for an additional amount of $41,000. Ken Dawson.
This is just an extension of that contract for the dumpsters for a short period of time. We're in the process of going out for those bids now.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Kluart, second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Discussion? Question, Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, Mr. Dawson.
Yes, sir.
What was the last, y'all can recall what was the last contract we renewed? I thought it was like $31,000 or something like that, and the year before that, it was, the last one I had was around about 30. I mean, I just want to know why the bigger increase.
You have the
Okay, I just,
31 is an amendment, right?
It's just amended, that's ain't the total amount.
yeah, that's what I'm, yeah, okay.
31. I think 41.
Yeah, that was an amendment for Lamar Dixon because Lamar Dixon increased their amount because they had so many events. So they did something a little separately because they had so much going on at Lamar Dixon. This is kind of separate from that one.
So it's two separate contracts, so they're roughly about 75,000. Okay, all right, that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any opposition? Hearing none. Motion's adopted. Item number 12, monthly contract report. Sandra. Welcome.
Good evening. You have before you a list of all contracts that were entered into in the month of January.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Sandra. Very efficient. You know, LSU's playing Kentucky tonight.
Rub it in.
Item number 13, budget amendment number 2, approval to introduce ordinance to amend 2019 budget.
Good evening. You have before you the ordinance for budget amendment number 2, which reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2019 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 15th day of November 2018. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2019 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. Operating budget, general fund, grants not awarded until 2019. Revenues, grant LGAP, $31,500. Civil defense, EMA, $93,000. Expenditures, OEP Homeland Security, appropriations and grants for the 2018 SHISHIP, $60,000. Appropriations and grants for the 2018 EMPG, $33,000. GIS Department, appropriations and grants for the 2018-19 LAGAP, $31,500. Road and Bridge Fund, this is for the fueling station at DPW. Expenditures and other financing uses, transfers out to the Office Building Construction Fund for $35,500. East Ascension Drainage Fund, fueling station at DPW. Expenditures and other financing uses, transfers out to the Office Building Construction Fund, $106,500. Capital budget, Office Building Construction Fund for the fueling station at DPW. Revenues and other financing sources, transfer in from Road and Bridge Fund, $35,500. Transfer in from East Ascension Drainage Fund, $106,500. Expenditures, contract payments, $142,000. Dedicated Special Projects Fund. This is for the Steamboat Museum grant. The project was not finished in 2018 as originally budgeted. The revenues for intergovernmental grants, $849,000. Expenditures, appropriations, and grants, $849,000. Park Construction Fund, gym project and design of 2 spray parks. Expenditures, engineering fees for the gym project, $280,000, design of 2 spray parks, $100,000, for a total of $380,000 engineering. Professional services, gym project, $20,000. Contract payments, gym project, $2,500,000.
Okay, any question? Got a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert. A second by Councilman Travis Turner. Discussion. Mr. Lawler.
The gym project, does that also include the bathrooms at Lamar Dixon?
I have no idea.
Who's got that? Mr. Dawson.
No, it doesn't. The project for the 2.8 just includes the gym design. It includes, as it says there, the engineering and those costs. I didn't see any project that included bathrooms for the soccer field. That's what you're referring to?
Yes.
I didn't see anything in that cost that referred to bathrooms in the soccer field.
That's what was discussed at every other meeting before this until now.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes, and if you can remember, we go back, we did mention about that funding, and we was also going to fund that out of our regular recreation fund. This money is coming from like a loan, and I'm not correct, for $3 million, but
About the soccer, 4.2, Bill, remember that?
Yeah.
So, Aaron, you're right, but then it got cut along the way when it reduced from 4-something to 3 million.
Well, I think this is what Oliver is saying, is that there's money in the reserve fund for recreation, for what you're, for the soccer.
But not the money we're talking about
bathrooms.
tonight,
Yeah.
Aaron.
Yeah, it was taken out of there because we didn't include that in the bond money and expected that would come out of the reserve fund because we weren't using the reserve fund for the gym.
You could take it out the other, this is not that fund.
Right.
And you're right, Aaron, but you got to take it out that other.
I don't want what happened to Travis and his gym to happen to those bathrooms.
Well, you're going to watch it closely.
Well, those bathrooms were not the, it was a poor design issue, and it's a bad situation out there.
We'll get some porta cans and we'll put a spray park in Santa Monica.
Well, if you remember, we tried to do a spray park in Santa Monica, but you didn't want to do that. So.
You didn't want to do it.
Yes, I did. I put in the motion, you said no.
Okay.
all right, we can move forward, but that's, Aaron, your
Okay.
funding is in the
Mr. Chairman,
fund
Todd,
balance.
Mr. Todd
I want
Lambert.
to rescind my motion. I'm not for this particular. I want to object on it.
Motion.
So I want to
Second.
rescind my motion that I made on this project.
Okay, well, I don't know about that, but and so we have a motion by Councilman Travis Turner, a second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. That's to approve as submitted. Is that correct?
That's
Mr.
correct.
Turner? Okay, now discussion. Mr. Todd Lambert.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for that, but it kind of slipped up on me. Guys, this gym, we just rebuilt the gym that's there now at Lamar Dixon. We just spent, $400,000 to get it up to par? And $380,000, $2.5 million, how much is, coming out of a loan that we're gonna have to pay, coming out of our recreation fund, which is, gonna take a big chunk of our recreation money. We have how many parks on this side of the river, and the other side, probably close to 20. that we use this recreation fund to maintain. I think we're gonna hurt for funding on the existing parks that's there now if we go out and put a bond, for $2.5 million for a gym. Is the need that much for one? We have one there now. We are using all the school gyms. I go to them every Saturday, watch my grandkids play. The schools are, offering all the gyms that we need. I just think that's something that we need to hold up on, and I'm an objection for it.
Okay. Any further discussion? So we have opposition, so Ashley, we'll have to do a roll call here. We can't do the buttons, can we?
No. Councilman Joseph?
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Councilman Satterly?
I'm going to agree with Todd, no.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilwoman Casso?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert? No.
No.
Councilman Kluwat?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
No.
And I'm going to vote, and I vote yes. Okay, so I had it 8-3, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion is adopted. Item number 14, sales and use tax report. Ms. LeBlanc.
You have before you the regular sales and use tax report. This completes this year 2018. This is the last one, and if you concentrate more on the budget comparison on the the right, the 28 collections you notice for East Ascension Drainage, that's the largest collection year in the history of the sales tax for East Ascension Drainage at $15.8 million. And you can see the other two, sales tax district 1 and 2, are also above budget, and the percentages is on the far right.
Okay, we have questions for Ms. Guerin. So I can't find my report, but did you say they were the highest that we've ever had? Is that correct?
For East Ascension Drainage, the collections.
Yeah, okay. And so, when, I guess we'll have the audited results in, a month or two, is that correct? And then we'll make the transfers based on that, is that correct? Okay. Further questions for Ms. LeBlanc? Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 15, the revenue and expenditure report. Amanda?
Good evening. Before you are the financial reports for the month of December 2018. These reports are not reflected as the end of the year report. We're still making final entries on the books still. Page 1, revenues are currently at 85.23%. Page 2, expenditures are at 83.47% at 100% of the year. Page 3 are charts that compare the year-to-date revenue and expenditure for both operating and capital to the budget. Page 4 and 5 gives you a brief explanation of the funds that are highlighted on page 1 and 2 that are under the budget for revenues or over the budget for expenditures by 5% or more. And the last page reflects all checks issued in December over $100,000, and the total of the checks were $1,669,779.78. Once you review the report, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
On the R.J. Daigle and Son, I think last night is this the last payment on the road project that we have? I see number 4, it's up to number 4. For the 2018?
Microphone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further questions? LSU versus Kentucky.
Good.
Okay, at item number.
34:30.
Mr.
34:30?
Mr. Chairman, point of order, there will be a Utilities Committee meeting after this for those that are anxious to see the LSU game. And
I'm
Mr.
sure
Chairman,
that-
I believe
I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest
I
in
believe
that.
you'll be around for that as well.
Yep. Item number 16, bid items, and to accept lowest responsive bid as follows, and we have Darrell that's chipping in for Joan tonight.
Thank you. On January 30th, 2019, the Purchasing Department received 4 bids for Type HP High Performance Coal Mix. After review, the Purchasing Department and the Department of Public Works recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Coastal Bridge Company, LLC, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Satterley, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Any opposition? Been adopted.
On January 30th, 2019, the Purchasing Department received 2 bids for the supply and delivery of liquid CL2 for water treatment. After review, the Purchasing Department and the Public Utilities Department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by DPC Enterprises and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Okay.
So move.
Got a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, second by Councilwoman Casso. Discussion, opposition. Item C.
On January 31st, 2019, the Purchasing Department received 2 bids for Waterman C20 canal gate valves. After review, the Purchasing Department and the Public Works Department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Quality Site Work Materials and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman John Cagnolati. Discussion, opposition.
On January 31st, 2019, the Purchasing Department received 1 bid for CRS2 asphalt emulsion. After review, the Purchasing Department and the Department of Public Works recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Asphalt Products Unlimited Incorporated and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by
Got it.
Councilwoman Casso. Discussion, opposition. Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you.
Executive session.
Motion.
Got a motion by Councilwoman Casso, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Go into executive session. I have a roll call.
Councilman Joseph?
Yes.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Councilman Satterley?
Yes.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilwoman Casso?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Kluwat?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Motion to reconvene.
Got a motion by
Second.
Councilman Johnson, second by Councilman Cagnalotti to reconvene. Second session, executive session, no motion necessary, was an update only. Under 18, amendment number 1, the legal services contract with Rodale Parsons, Koch, Blanche, Valhoff, good Lord, and McAllister to include employment law services in the scope of services. Compensation will be increased by $100,000 for a total not to exceed an amount of $200,000.
Motion.
Got a motion by Councilman, Councilman Johnson, second by Councilman Kluat. Discussion. Opposition. Hearing none. Motion's adopted. Item number 19. Motion by Councilman Cagnalotti, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert.